Nevada Desert, 1951. Thousands of young American soldiers huddle in trenches just miles from ground zero. They are told to cover their eyes. They feel the heat wave first, then the earth-shattering shock wave. They are ordered to stand up, to march towards the mushroom cloud, towards the heart of the atomic fire. They were told it was safe. They were told it was for science. They were told it was for their country. They were lied to. This is the story of the atomic soldiers, the young men who were used as human guinea pigs in America's nuclear testing program, a story of patriotism, betrayal, and a secret that the government tried to bury for decades. Would you march into a mushroom cloud for your country? These men did, and the consequences were devastating. Welcome to WW2 War Files. Today we uncover one of the darkest chapters of the Cold War, a story that begins where World War II ends. The atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki ended the war, but they also ignited a new, terrifying arms race with the Soviet Union. America needed to understand its new superweapon. How did it work on the battlefield? What were its effects on soldiers? How could an army fight and win a nuclear war? To answer these questions, the U.S. government launched a series of atmospheric nuclear tests in the Nevada desert, codenamed Operation Desert Rock. And to study the effects on humans, they needed human subjects. Between 1951 and 1962, over 200,000 American servicemen were ordered to participate in these tests. They were young, patriotic, and trusted their leaders completely. They were told the exercises were perfectly safe. They were given dosimeters to measure radiation, but these were often collected before they entered the most contaminated areas. They were assured that the low levels of radiation were harmless. One veteran, Jim O'Connor, recalled the moment of detonation. You could see the bones in your hands, just like an X-ray. It was beautiful and terrifying all at once. Immediately after the blast, they were ordered out of the trenches and forced to march towards the still-growing mushroom cloud. They conducted military maneuvers on ground zero, sometimes just hours after the detonation. They breathed in radioactive dust. They ate contaminated food. They were exposed to levels of radiation that we now know are incredibly dangerous. Imagine you are a 19-year-old soldier in 1951. Your government tells you this is safe and necessary to defeat communism. Do you follow orders, or do you question the mission? Let us know in the comments. These soldiers believed they were serving their country. In reality, they were the subjects of a massive secret medical experiment. As the years went by, the atomic soldiers returned to civilian life, but they brought the desert's poison home with them. Many began to develop rare and aggressive forms of cancer: leukemia, multiple myeloma, thyroid cancer. Their children were born with birth defects. The idyllic post-war American dream became a nightmare for these families. When they sought help from the Department of Veterans Affairs, they were met with a wall of denial. The government refused to acknowledge any link between their illnesses and their service in the desert. Their medical records were classified. Their requests for information were denied. They were told their conditions were not service-related. To make matters worse, they were all forced to sign an atomic secrecy oath, forbidding them from ever speaking about what they had seen and done in the desert. If they spoke, they faced a $10,000 fine and 10 years in prison. They were trapped, sick, dying, and legally silenced. One veteran, Frank Farmer, said, "We were betrayed. We served our country, and in return, they used us, and then they threw us away. They just wanted us to die and be quiet." This was the conspiracy of silence. The government knew the risks. Declassified documents later revealed that scientists had warned about the dangers of radiation exposure, but the military's need for data outweighed the safety of its own men. This is a story of institutional betrayal. Do you believe the government was justified in conducting these experiments for the sake of national security, or was it an unforgivable crime? This is a complex moral question. Share your perspective below. For decades, these veterans suffered in silence, their patriotism used against them. But a few brave men decided to fight back. In the late 1970s, the tide began to turn. A handful of veterans, led by a man named Anthony Guarisco, decided to break their silence. They formed the National Association of Atomic Veterans. They began to share their stories with the media. They lobbied Congress. They sued the government. They faced immense resistance. The government fought them at every turn, but they refused to give up. Their activism slowly brought the issue into the national spotlight. News reports and documentaries began to expose the truth. Public pressure mounted. Finally, in 1990, Congress passed the Radiation Exposed Veterans Compensation Act. It was a landmark victory. For the first time, the government officially recognized that certain cancers and diseases were linked to the atomic tests. Veterans who could prove they were at the tests and had one of the specified illnesses were finally eligible for compensation and medical care. It was a partial victory. Many felt it was too little too late. Thousands had already died without recognition, and the government never formally apologized. But it was a victory nonetheless. The silence was broken. The truth was out. The atomic soldiers fought two wars, one in the desert against a hypothetical enemy, and another at home against their own government for recognition. Their story is a powerful reminder to always question authority and fight for the truth. Do you know of other stories where veterans had to fight for justice? Share them in the comments. Let's honor their struggle. The story of the atomic soldiers is a dark and complex part of American history. It's a story of patriotism and betrayal, of scientific progress and human cost. These men were not just numbers in an experiment. They were husbands, fathers, and sons. They were heroes who served their country only to be sacrificed in the name of national security. Their legacy is a warning about the dangers of unchecked power and the importance of holding our leaders accountable. Thank you for watching WW2 War Files. If you believe the stories of the atomic soldiers deserve to be heard, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. We are dedicated to uncovering the forgotten files of the war and the Cold War that followed.